A basic rundown of what there is in Photoshop. So Photoshop pretty much is like every other software by Adobe, essentially. There's not much more to it than that, but it is probably more complicated if you've never used it rather than having used Illustrator or anything else. So first thing you always kind of really want to do is File New. And there's custom types for everything. I wouldn't say any of them are really specifically useful. Photo is fine, you're not really going to use that. Print is good, they've got all the paper sizes you really need, and there's a ton of templates which I've never used in my life, but stuff like there's a mockup would be really useful for branding, business card mockups, and everything. They're really high quality. So if there's any time you really want to use anything, I'd say that's the best thing to use rather than actually Googling it, because it's just 10 times as quick. Or like these things, they're all there and available to you. Art and illustration, again, you're more likely to use Illustrator for this, but there are some cool textures here, or like a sketchbook markup, which could be really useful to put some designs on. And then you've obviously got web. There's got a ton of stuff like desk mockups. They've got actual laptop mockups, desktop mockups, even more laptop stuff. But the more cool stuff is they actually have UI kits available, which I've never actually clicked on. And I can imagine they're really useful. And then mobile, which gives you stuff I do keep on forgetting when I'm like, I can't find anything like that. It's a Batman mockup that I could just put up right now. And actually, that's something I'm probably going to do for, yeah, we're going to use that as an example. So let's do a mobile second. But what we're going to do now is I'm just going to walk you through everything in there. So let's just open up your typical, actually web, just do a large crate. Because we're not going to actually make anything yet. So the first thing I'd say is where everything is. So file, nothing is really ever going to be useful here for you apart from, let's see, recent, nothing really. You have to worry about how you can place link stuff here, but it's irrelevant. Edit. Now this is something you're going to use quite a lot for when it comes to UI design and web design. So for example, if we actually, I need to check if this is actually streaming, because this is the first time I'm doing this, and if this isn't streaming, I'm just going to be annoyed because I'm talking for no reason. It is working. Cool. Awesome. Apparently 2 are live, which is brilliant. Anyway, so first thing you do when you realize when you click on a shape, it really starts on depending on what you used last. So like mine's set on a stroke. So if I start making a shape, that happens. And the one thing you have to realize in Photoshop is, say I make a square, right? It's done it in the same square because I haven't clicked off it, and now they're part of the same thing. So if you want to make 2 squares, sorry, whenever I do, that's going to happen. I actually need to change that as well for less than 2. So say if I make a square, and little things like that are going to come up. It's annoying, but there's not much you can do about it. So say I've got rectangle 1, click off rectangle 1, make another one, my word, get rid of that. And now I've got rectangle 2, so I've got 2 separate ones. But if I simply selecting that one, do this, it's part of the same rectangle. So now these are connected. So always click off something if you want to make another rectangle. To make a filled one, just get rid of this, and then select it. Not a filled rectangle. Now the reason I was talking about what's it called about edit is because that's where transform sits. And when it comes to at least to UI design, that's really going to be your most used tool, more or less. And so to do that, you literally, the easiest way is to click on it, whatever you want to transform. So let's say this shape, Control T, and then that allows you to transform. So that's going to let you change sizes, rotate, whatever direction you want, and that's really as simple as it gets in UI for shaping stuff up. But then there's also going to be little things you might want to do. So unlike an Illustrator, when you can move bits and bobs around, apply, this is a lot more difficult. So say if you want to skew a button, right? So let's say I want to create a skewed button. First thing I do is click on this, Control T, and downsize it to, let's say, 100 kind of button size, and let's make this 350. or as close to that as I can get. And now to skew it, what I need to do is actually go edit, transform, and skew. So I can start doing that. Set as -12.7, and that. And I've got a skewed button. So like an illustrator, you can do every corner one by one. You can't do that in Photoshop. It's one of the big downsides, and why people are moving to stuff like XD. But it's worth knowing the basics of Photoshop first before doing anything else. So let's clear all of that. Now what else is the image? Now here you've got a lot of adjustment stuff we can do. So what I'm going to do is open up a file, a photo. File, open, I've got something called lesson 1 that I quickly whipped up. From the wedding, me looking dapper, everyone looking funny. So here you've got, hold on, let me just unlink that so I can edit stuff on it. So you've got a photo. What this lets you do is basically the main ones you're going to do, and photo editing can be used for advertising, websites, everywhere, any images you want. So quite obviously brightness and contrast, and you can layer multiple ones on top of each other, so it's not a big deal. You can literally do 5 of these at once, and it will keep on changing it. So there's that. Levels is something I use very rarely, but it basically changes the brightness of something, and it affects the whole image. Something I do use a lot is curves if I'm editing an image, because it lets you literally dynamically change specific areas, so you can kind of change everything around the image, and it's really good. It's all trial and error. And the only other stuff that I'd say is any use is vibrance is really good to basically up the colors. You can see they kind of went from really bright to almost grey scale. Saturation, if you really want to brighten stuff up, but almost never use it. And then you've got hue and saturation, where you literally have control over the colors. And this is kind of how people edit specific dresses and stuff. So, for example, something that literally is relevant to everything. If I grabbed marquee tool, which is here, and you can choose any single one you want, or even the polygon lasso tools, just to select an area of the photo. So say I select here, right? Me doing this will actually allow me to change the hue and saturation of that particular element. So if I just start playing around with it, that's going to change. But to make it more obvious, if we select this bit and do the exact same thing, see? And you could do that, so you could change the whole dress here if you literally went around with a pen tool and did it. So talking of the pen tool, probably the worst tool in the world, especially in Photoshop, I think. So say, unlike an Illustrator, which I think is a banging pen tool, this pen tool's way more annoying. So I find using this pen tool is better to just go around, to zoom in as much as you can, which I'm not doing right now because it's just too much effort. And you go in as much as you can to whatever it is you're doing. You literally do as many dots as you can, because it really allows you to get in deep. And the closer you are, the more zoomed in you are. Like, not like I've just done, where you can see me going off, but if I was going in at, 400% or whatever this is, all these little errors of me just kind of being out, you will not spot because you're so zoomed in. It's going to be really hard to notice, and especially if you downsize the photo. So the best thing you can do about photo is work in it in its bigger size, do all the editing there, and then drop it into your design, because any imperfections will disappear because you're going to be downsizing. But let's say, I'm not going to spend my time doing this, just say, hold on, this is going to look terrible, but I'm going as quick as I can. Children, do not do this because your designs will look horrendous, but let's say that's that, right? Circle the dress, and I really should be going around the hand and everything, but for the sake of it, you do right click, make selection, don't feather anything, and now if we go image adjustments, saturation, we have a green dress. It's that simple, essentially. And then you could delay it, like duplicate this layer, actually do it on top so you don't have to affect it. So say if I wanted to do this safer, so I don't want to ruin anything, what I can do is right click on the layer, duplicate it, call it dress, and actually now right click, select inverse first. So I've deleted basically everything around the dress. So if you look, just got the dress. And then Now do select and verse again, and now edit it. So brightness and hue and saturation, turn it turquoise, and see the dress is on top. But now I can kind of go, well, what if I got a blur tool or something, and start blurring it, or got a, I don't know, if I select this again and actually grab it and then do something like select, modify, feather, 5. Well, wrong way around apparently. So I do select and verse, and you feather it, and it kind of just feathers it, so makes it smoother, and then you can do loads of things. But that's basically the basics of that. The only other tool you really need to use from adjustments, really, in all honesty, is black and white. So you can, I use black and white rather than the opposite, which is, what is it called? Saturate, because saturate just does it automatically for you, which sometimes works. It's actually quite nice. But adjustments, black and white, actually lets you manipulate every single color. So you can see you can go as white as that, or really, bring down the reds, bring up everything down, kind of move it around, and really have full control over your photo, and get more of a contrast, which is awesome. Now, besides that, the only other thing I can really think of that I use quite often is something called feather, which is basically when you want to do overlays. So say you imagine I want to basically do a black overlay over this, and so I can put text over it without taking over the whole thing. So what you do is create a new layer. Let's get black going. Shift F5 does foreground color. Paste it. So you're like, oh my gosh, got everything black. So what you can do is drop it to a 60, right? Kind of see it. Now select the entire area. So say I don't want any fade at the top, right? So we do select that, select, modify, and this is all, again, trial and error, but let's say 100. And now press deselect, and see the fade is quite smooth. But now look at if I did that without any feathering, so I did the same thing, straight line. And that's what lets you really have a smooth fade. And the more you click feather, so say if I even up this, so it's a bit more obvious, 75. So I can show you, select, modify, feather, 100. So 1's like that, 2's like that, 3, and then it keeps on going. And you can keep on, dragging this here, doing select, modify, feather, done. You can do it any way you want, but basically that's what that's for. Type is an interesting thing here on Photoshop, and I'll actually do it as an overlay again. So let's do our overlay quickly, like we did before. Drop this to 75. Lock both of these so don't move them. Now imagine I want to make it a text, right? Let's say happy anniversary. So to change color is really simple. Bam, white, easy. To change fonts is really simple. They're all here. That's all easy. But what you might not realize is when you're writing, so the way it is particularly here is right now I've got it constricted to that box, right? Which is good, but it's really bad when you're trying to align things. But I can show you right now. So say this, and in the type palette you've got the exact same thing in Illustrator and InDesign, nothing to be scared about, but that's the height, so I can do that. If it's 48, I usually do 58. Spreads it out. And then if you want to spread out the text a bit between each other, it's currently on 25. If I do 0, that happens. If I do 100, that happens. So it's really simple to use. But I'll show you the difference. So this is when it's, hold on, in a container, right? But now imagine I want to do the exact same thing. Happy anniversary. But what you can do now is, if I hide that, right click on this and convert it to point text. This is what you're usually meant to do in UI. And once you've done all your text, don't do it at the beginning because it really screws you up. And now this is literally, that's its container. So it's perfect alignment. But the issue is, if I want to keep on writing, you keeps on spreading. So you literally have to do your paragraphs by eye. So if I wanted to do happy anniversary, and then I'd have to go shift enter, shift enter, shift enter. So that's the difference, but it allows you to center everything perfectly. And that's really all there is of type. Another thing you will be using a lot is gradients. So let's do this text again. Happy anniversary. So hold on, do that. Convert it to point text. Unlock that and just center it on this. So you go bam, bam, right? Centered. Now let's make a button. So let's say we want to make a button, really simple one. So what I'm going to do is just do sizes. So do the width about 200, the height about 80. Oh, no, don't do that. Do the width about 300, do the height about 120. Big enough. It's a little button. So what we want to do is, let's make it a stroke button. Let's do it red. So we've got a stroke. Actually, let's make it a bit wider because it's getting silly. Let's make it, because this isn't actually a website, let's make it that big and then make it that big, right? We can center it as well. Don't know when this got grouped, so ungroup that. Group function is the exact same, Control G. Let's center this as well. There you go. And now imagine, no, hold on, I'm trying to think what's the best way to do this. Yeah, let's make it a really thick stroke, so let's do 10. So now probably one of your most used things is going to be double clicking on this and going into your layer styles. The most obvious ones you're going to use 9 times out of 10 is color overlay, which is really the lazy way of just changing the color of the button, or the gradient overlay. Now gradient overlay is really powerful. So you can do some fancy, you know, nice gradients to really mess around with what you've got. But like, that's really pretty color. The alternate is you can do something like, so if I shift Alt and actually make this a fill for a second, see it's kept its color style, something I can remove by doing right click, clear layer style, or something I can copy and paste on another element, which makes it a lot easier. So that's what that's for. But another thing you will use probably quite often is drop shadows, which usually the easiest way to do it is get rid of global lighting, set it on 90, set it on something like 5, 9, and it's just a little drop shadow. But to make it more obvious, for the 100% opacity, you can see what all of these do. So that's the easiest way to learn. Like, put everything at 100%, see how it spreads, and then you can mess around with it. And to put text on the button, again, really simple. Well, I don't know how I click pencil, but text. 1, 2, 3. Make it a bit smaller. Make it like 24. Drag it over the top. Center it. Bam, bam, done. Really simple. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh yeah, smart layers. Now smart layers are something that's really, really handy. So imagine I just make like a button shape, right? It's going to be the shape of my button all the time. So what I can do is make this a smart layer. So we're going to call this, double click, say button 1, and actually just change this color so I can actually see what the heck I'm looking at. Button 1. Right click. Where is it? Convert smart object. Now, this will happen. So say we have 5 of these buttons throughout our website, all over the shop. And now on any one of these, say you want to make a change to all of them, what you do is you double click on it, and then we go, actually, we really want them to be a gradient because I think that would look better. Set your gradient, press X, press save, bam. And it does all the edits. Say we're like, actually all of them need the same text, so say send. You know, you do your thing, you center it, bam, bam. See, actually that's a really good example of how it's off-center. It's in this. Look how where it is now, and see if I convert this to point text and center it again. Now it's actually centered. But again, yes, this is what this is used for. you'd only really ever use it for buttons or for little elements like that, or icons. And in stuff like Sketch and in XD, it's actually called a symbol, and it's much more refined and better and easier to use. But this is kind of to show you how to do that. And now to just show you a very basic mock-up for just the first lesson. This is a really short lesson just to get you into everything and to follow. If we get rid of all of this, File, New, Mobile, and we had this, which is really pretty, right? Download. Hopefully it won't take long. Give it a second. Okay, cool, it's downloaded. Open. That's quite nice. So, and this is how smart layers will work as well. So if you change the design here, it will change it here, which is amazing. And one thing I haven't actually pointed out is when you're selecting, you always want to have auto select on and on layer, so you can select on a specific thing. But say I double click on this, right? And then in my lesson folder, which is here, I have got a design that's mobile, so drag it in. Usually when you drag these in, they're not going to fit because a lot of this stuff is extremely high res, and don't worry if it starts getting blurry, because this stuff, most mockups are huge for a reason, and most mobile designs aren't for a reason, but that's close enough. Control T, just resizing it, and now you can see if I press yes. Oh, they haven't linked it, I thought it'd be the same one, but now you've got a really nice mockup for your phone. But what I did want to do is try it for OverSumo. So what we're going to do is go into show you me actually doing it properly. So let's go to Clients, OverSumo, Design, OverSumo Dev, New Updates, Mobile. I'll show you how I do this. So here's a load of my OverSumo designs, right? Fortunately, it's not as fancy as it was, but what I can do actually is, what I'm going to do first is do a bit of tidy up. Touch this, copy layer style, paste it here. That's not going to work right now, is it? Forget that. So what I want to do actually is get this OverSumo mobile one. Never suggest doing it like this, but just to show you an example. And essentially, actually, let's do it this way. Quick export as PNG, desktop, OverSumo mobile, and then go back to this, get rid of that so it's not in my way. Go to my desktop, OverSumo mobile, drag it in. So the actual design is actually quite a bit nicer right now, which is funny, because I thought they wouldn't work with the images. And let's say that looks about right. And what we can do is actually do that, yes, and then, yeah, it was a weird scale because of the phone. So that doesn't look really nice just because of scale. But if we dropped it in, let's say, maybe like that, could look a bit nicer, yes. Or even double click on this and do it like that. That could look a bit nice. See, that screen can look quite nice. Show you how we do stuff on our Instagram is if I file open Instagram one. So this is basically side up to every Instagram post. All our past Instagram posts on NoCut are here. So to drop it in, what I have to do is I'm going to basically merge layers, and drag it in. And now it's that centered. This is what our Instagram post would look like. Not really a fan of the screen, and at 100% you can see it's still quite blurry. It's not ideal because of the resolution of everything, but that's essentially how I do that. That's a really basic example of how to do a mock-up, basically. But you can also do this thing where we can increase the size of everything and play around with it and potentially choose exactly what we want to highlight. So I'm trying to think if I've got a high-res mobile. picture right now. I don't, but that's really as easy as it gets to mock up stuff. And I'll do a proper version of this shortly, just so I can record that and play around a bit and see how it looks as good as it can. But that's really it. You know, it's really simple to do a mock-up. You know, you can move that to the bottom of the footer again. And something that might be quite cool for you guys to see. Hold on, how does this work? I can't do it. Something I haven't figured out yet, but I can show you in the future lesson is how to basically animate this mockup using this mockup and Illustrator. So what would happen is we'd essentially delete this part of the screen. So imagine, forget this bit, delete that. And what I did was, my eye really badly now, deleted that. So this bit is basically doesn't exist now. So imagine if I draw a square, right? And drop it in behind. And basically it's moving in the back, so that's how I'd have it moving in the back. What are you looking at this mock-up? This is, actually that's me cutting out really badly. That's how it would animate underneath. And I actually could do something like that as well in Photoshop. So if you imagine, I didn't just delete it horrendously badly, right? Bring back, hold on, this, and actually drag it into, where is it? Here. And kind of like delete this, kind of size it up to the right size. Really loosely, so say that's there. Again, I said this won't be very organized as a lesson, but it's to let you guys just get your first. This phone is bent, that's why. This mock-up bent from the beginning. Very interesting, but whatever, as a guide. Imagine that's there, right? Now what we're going to do is go bam, bam. This mockup is actually bent, which is why it looks so weird. Bam. Make selection and delete this from the image, and then drop this in behind. See, it's kind of off, but if I just scale it a bit over, you won't really notice. Give me a second. So what happens when your phone is bent? Oh, okay, good enough. Doesn't really matter right now. Right, and then what we can do is go Window, Timeline. Wow, this has completely messed up my thing. Brilliant. Hold on. Maybe I can delete that. Let's see if I can fix this. Hold on. Bam, bam, Window, Timeline. I'll try show it to you guys just as an example. Create a frame animation. So imagine this is frame 1. Let's do that on 0.1 seconds. And imagine the next frame is actually, wow, okay, this. Come on, what is it doing? Okay, hold on. So this is the last frame, right? And what you can do, select these two, do here, and go to tween, which basically means fill in the rest of the animations. And let's say we're going to need quite a few, let's say 200 to make it really smooth. And I do realize what my screen looks like, but imagine I press play now, and it should. It's nowhere near enough, 200, but it animates it for you. And then to view it, if you want, what you can do is do File, Export, Save Web. That's any way to get a GIF. Hold on, let's see. And I'll show you how it looks. It's still loading up. Just as an example, I'm really hoping all of this is recording well. And then I can do another set where I'm actually going to do a design. Because right now, all I'm really doing is showing really random bits of Photoshop just to get you into it and more comfortable in exploring. So save on your desktop, just call it whatever, doesn't really matter. Let it export. Hopefully it does, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. This is a really big image, so this is why it's taking so long. What is happening? Test time. Should work. Don't know why it's being. Maybe because of what's happened to my viewport. That's why it's happening. Yeah, I think we've done for today. Yeah, but basically, if you export it as a GIF, you can view it, and I'll do that again very soon. But right now, you can see what's happening to my viewport, which isn't good. Bam. So that's it, and I'll show more tomorrow.